Do we need a national state of disaster? What are the mechanisms available for the principles of these frameworks? In other words, the MECs of cooperative governance and the Minister of Cooperative Governance. And why is it, despite knowing that we're a flood-prone country, why are we not doing the necessary infrastructure investment to be able to prevent these sorts of things? A lot of people argue that it comes down to town planning. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. On my panel this evening is Dr. Dickson Sibula Samanyanga, who's a lecturer at UJ's Department of Urban and Regional Planning. I'm also joined on Zoom by the MEC of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in Mpumalanga, MEC Mandla Msibi. And I'm also joined by the MEC of Cooperative Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs in Limpopo, MEC Basikopo Makamu. And again, I want you to be a part of this conversation. I want to start with you, Dr. Dickson, and thank you so much for coming into my studio. Really, really do appreciate it. Do we need a national state of disaster to respond to the current state of floods that we've been experiencing in various parts of the country over the last 2 weeks?
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come to the show. Good evening to yourself and the listeners. Yes, yes and no. But yes, in the sense that we need a starting point. We need somewhere where we'll take this matter seriously and move forward. So I think this is a very good initiative going forward. It will assist in coordinating all these plans that we need to incorporate in going to solve these matters.
No, in what sense then? And I'm asking you here as a professional, not for a political answer, right? Because, I mean, national state of disasters have, for some reason, become politically contested terrain that carries a great deal of contention and controversy to it because of what it allows. But what then would have to be the response right now to the state of disaster, and in what ways do we then use the state of disaster to be able to respond to those flood situations?
Okay, I know in the sense that there are certain other things that could have been done. We've been facing these issues for almost 2 decades now, and it's been a repetition without difference. Each and every time when we're getting these rainy seasons, these floods come, they destroy, and then we try to fix. So what I'm saying could have been done by then is anticipate. We need to anticipate this before it happens. So
Yeah.
that's the stance that I'm taking.
Do we not have the detection systems and protocols in place?
Yes, we do, but practically, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. In the way in which we are going to foster development going forward, it needs to keep this as one of the requirements in the way we develop not just cities, but each and every other development. How we place our roads, the material that we use in placing our roads, our bridges and infrastructure.
So is that where we're getting it wrong?
Yeah, I think that is where we're getting it wrong because we are planning and developing like we used to in the past, and we're not in the past right now, we're in the future. Yes.
Let's start here. I mean, we know which places are prone to floods and natural disasters, mudslides as a result of that, which places sewer systems and sanitation systems are most vulnerable and prone to disruption when these sort of things happen. It seems to be geographically low-lying spaces, right? If you think about KZN and the towns in KZN, for instance, that are prone to the sort of damage and the infrastructure that we invest there. Why are we not thinking about redesigning away from those spaces?
It's not easy. It's not an overnight thing. It's something that takes time. It's something that needs a solid plan for us to say this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it and this is how we're going forward with it.
Right.
Now, the issue that we have right now is that we talk about it, we have ideas about it, and we wait for it to happen. So now development is something that occurs each and every day. And that is what I'm saying. It needs to change. It's not something, we can't just take a town and change it overnight. We need to reinforce the ones that we currently have. We need to ensure that they are climate proof.
When you mean reinforce, what does that mean?
I mean, change the materials in which we use. The infrastructure needs to be overhauled. The influx of water, for instance, if we're talking about floods.
Sure. I mean,
yes.
You're not a civil engineer, but at a basic level, talk to me about what does it mean to fix a town, an entire town's storm water drain systems, for instance.
Yeah, that is hectic, and it requires not just engineers but planners as well.
Sure.
I know in the beginning you said this is a planning issue. It's not a planning issue only. Engineers are involved. All other professionals, architects are also involved.
Sure.
Because the buildings themselves can be designed in a manner that uses the water or deflects the water at certain places in certain manners. So it's an issue that requires all professionals and the government to be in play.
So if the Premier or the Minister of Public Works, whatever, says, look, Jackson, we want to overhaul the city of Joburg, for instance. We want to overhaul the stormwater drain system. Where do you even begin, realistically speaking?
I think you will begin with where the cracks are. Because I know City of Johannesburg is currently doing what we're discussing, but it runs into the billions. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
how do you detect the cracks?
Where you see the clocks, and as and when you need to send out a survey. Basically,
right.
We need
start
to
with
do
a
a feasibility study.
Sure.
We need to see the state at which these towns and cities are at. Then we look at the low-hanging fruits. Where are these places where it's more clogged? That's where we need to start. Then we start we start fixing the places where they're not at an emergency. Basically.
Give us a call, 086 000 2032. I'm also taking your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. We're going to take a quick break and continue the conversation on the other side of this.
SAfm 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAfm.
Stephen Grootes on SAfm.
You say that an election might solve the problem, but I mean, you could end up with the same result. You could end up with the same people back. It's happened before.
Yeah, based on the fact that ANC is very corrupt. But I do not think it will happen this time around, because when poor people wake up and say enough is enough, then I tell you, there will definitely be no ANC in this town. Because this time it's not businesses, it's not people who can afford this and that, it's poor people from the shacks, from all over. We are tired.
Yolanda Tranga, thank you. A member of the Kamani Protest Action Committee. Very strong views there, as you can understand, around the ANC.
SAfm Sunrise. A vivid start to your day. This week, today, with Oliver Dickson.
This week, today, here on SAfm. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really do appreciate it. I'm in conversation with Dr. Jackson Sipula Samanyanga, who's a lecturer at UJ's Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Mandla Msibi, the MEC for Kokta in Mpumalanga, as well as Basikopo Makamu, who's the MEC for Kokta in Limpopo. And we're talking about the state of disaster we're currently under pertaining to the floods that we've been experiencing in various parts of the country. Give us a call. I'd like for you to be a part of this. What has been your experience? Do you have worries about a state of disaster being the framework through which we deal with floods in particular, right? And are you nervous about anything at all? That part of the conversation is critically important. The psychopolitical and psychosocial elements of these conversations matter just as much as the technical matters pertaining to a state of disaster. So, Jackson, what tools should we be getting from a state of disaster to be able to deal with the situation? Do we need an emergency infrastructure fund? Do we need emergency resources to be able to go and clear flooded areas? What do we need? What tools do we need?
Yeah, you're on point. We need funds. That's where it all starts. We need the funds in order to be able to get the infrastructure that needs to be put into place, and to remunerate the professionals that need to be dealing with this matter. So that's what we need to be organized. Basically, that's what I'm saying, and stop running around and reacting. Let's organize ourselves. Let's have a solid team that incorporates a lot of professionals. I know I'm repeating myself, and having a way forward that's holistic. That's what we need.
MEC Msibi, I want to bring you into the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. To what scale has the floods affected Mpumalanga, and to what extent will the state of disaster assist you in being able to deal with it as a province? MEC Msibi? Ooh, seems like we've got technical gremlins again. I want to ask us to just take a quick break so we see if we can get MEC Msibi as well as MEC Makamu back on the line and see if we can make a connection to them.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAfm.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAfm.
SAfm 104 to 107 nationwide. SAfm has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Oliver Dickson on SAfm.
Seems like we've been able to make reconnection with MEC Msibi. Thank you so much for indulging us while we sorted out that technical gremlin over there. MEC Mandla Msibi, the MEC of Kokta in Mpumalanga. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really do appreciate it. I don't know how much of the conversation I had with Jackson you were able to hear, given the connectivity issues we had there. But I want to start here with you. Could you perhaps give us a sense of the scale of damage that the floods have caused in Mpumalanga, and to what extent will a national state of disaster enable the province through the national government to be able to deal with it?
No, thank you very much. Good afternoon to your listeners, and thanks for the opportunity. The scale of damage is too huge in the province, in particular in the district of Eshandeni, which involves the four municipalities, which is Nkomazi, Mbombela, Sabathieu, and Bushbuckridge. And you also have the district of Herkbande, an area called Chandukanye in Mkondo municipality, where 8 mud houses collapsed. And in Nkomazi, the damage is huge. Bridges have been overflowed. Kids cannot go to school. It's difficult in terms of accessing health facilities. Police stations are closed. We have evacuated 3 kids from the boarding school called Shong. And people cannot even access basic things like food. With the help of the care of the givers, private people who help us business, we are being helped by the chopper from the Department of Defense for distribute food to the needy. The Joint Operations Committee there in Nkomazi have been working very well, under stewardship of the Honorable Executive Mayor Makakule, to working together with the district mayor and ourselves. We've got 6 fatalities. We have 6 people who have washed out by water or drowned, and we have only recovered 2. The scale of the current of the water and the flowing of the water makes it difficult for divers to access the other bodies. We hope and believe that they will be able to retrieve them.
And in which ways, MEC, will the national state of disaster enable you to deal with some of those things? What tools do you hope that it brings to the province?
All right, the national state of disaster provides an enabling environment because remember, provinces are being apportioned budget after the Ministry of Finance presented budget, and it is being allocated to different departments. And cabinet will sit and say such department will get X amount of money. So the budget that we're having has got annual performance plan.
Yeah.
And municipalities, the budget that they're having is well planned from the IDPs. So when they declare, the national departments are able to come with their budget to quickly help us. For example, in Komaze alone, more than 1,700 houses have been affected or damaged by the flood. So you already today we had an intergovernmental meeting with all ministers through the chairperson who's a Copter minister. The Minister of Human Settlement, Mayor Mamelou Kupai, has requested that we fast track the process of consolidating the list of the affected people.
Yeah.
The only difficult is that the rain is still continuing and it's difficult to consolidate the assessment. Yeah.
I know you can't give an exact number here, but give us as close to an estimate as you possibly can fathom. How much money do you need in Mpumalanga to deal with this?
Currently, we said it's 1.6 billion.
1.6 billion.
It's estimated figures. Why? Because remember, I said it's not Goma's alone. Bushback Ridge, bridges have been carried off, power lines have collapsed, roads are not. We speak about local municipal roads. We speak about provincial and national roads here.
Yeah.
So now it's an estimate. When the rain subsides and sun arrives, we'll then appoint engineers and consultants to determine exactly the yearly figure. It might go up sky because now it's 1.6 billion. You might find that it will go to 3 or 3.5 billion because now there will be specific details that these bridges must be constructed in this road so that in the future we don't encounter the very same problem of overflow.
Yeah. MEC Makamo, I want to bring you in here. Can you give us a sense of the scale of the damage and destruction caused by the floods in Limpopo?
Well, thanks. Let me say, I was listening to my colleague and my brother, Mandam Sivi, which I think Mpumalanga has already had is the hardest hit compared to us as the two provinces. But I must indicate that even us as a province, we have lost mainly households. Public infrastructure, yes, we have suffered some bridges, but not to the extent that Mpumalanga has gone, together with some schools, in some instances, some clinics or health facilities. But in the main, we also, like them, had some fatalities where we lost about 6 people already who fell into some pits and some rivers which were here. But also we saw in our province a very joint operation which was very successful, where our disaster management center together with the South African National Defence Force, together with the police, were able to rescue a man who has been trapped in the river for almost 4 days. You will understand when I say 4 days, that will also tell you that if they were many, will they have survived the 4 days when they were still trapped? Well, the answer could be no. But you will appreciate for the fact that we were able, as government, to respond and be able to save the life of a man who was trapped in the river. But today we had a meeting together with the MEC, Msivi, together with the minister, where the weather service is also telling us that there is a cyclone, Freddy, that will be is expected to land into the country, especially in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, which is coming through the channel near Madagascar. So we are cautioning our people, but also crossing our fingers that the rains, it's needed, but at the rate that we are receiving it now, are starting to create problems for us. So we can tell our people that tomorrow they should be expecting such rainfall that will be able to cause more problems for us.
Yeah. Jackson, I want to read this text to you I got from someone on our WhatsApp line. Hi there. All I keep hearing is we need funds and architects and engineers, but some of these problems of flooding are sometimes caused by the people around these areas. Not to offend anyone, but not to offend anyone who got affected by this. But the first thing the government needs to look at and to do is the issue of cleaning the streets and do something about illegal dumping of garbage and papers. There are drainage pipes that are blocked up, which are due to illegal dumping and uncleared streets. Those are the basics that government should deal with first. What are your reflections on that? How big of a, if that is real at all, how big of a crisis would it be?
Yes, I agree with the person who sent that message. Sometimes it's the basics that need to be taken into account, because the blocking of drainages is what's causing the flooding, particularly in urban areas. Just basics and the materials that are used. Let's say, for instance, people that are getting projects through tenders and whatnot. What sort of material are they using to do these drainages, these bridges that are collapsing overnight? And over and above that, yes, some of these bridges are old by nature and are not relevant with the current storm. But I do agree with that statement that she's saying.
MCB, before the floods, what was the infrastructure backlog of Mpumalanga? How much money are we talking there?
The infrastructure backlog of Mpumalanga.
Yeah.
It's huge. Mbombela alone, I will start with the city of Mbombela, the capital city of the province. That infrastructure alone requires more than 7 billion just for basic infrastructure, because you'll acknowledge that in terms of the constitution, the mandate of local government is installation of basic infrastructure.
Yeah.
But the point that you raised is key. When you go to, you see the topography of Nkomazi. Nkomazi is towards Maputo. The problem of Nkomazi is that it's got Makuka Dam from Swaziland, who flows its water towards Kirkofis Dam in South Africa. And the area is level. But the infrastructure of Nkomazi, their roads, they don't have stormwater drainage system.
What?
That's one. They don't have stormwater drainage system.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put that in context for me. How's there a town or a city with roads that doesn't have accompanying stormwater drains? What is the expected flow of water and sewer there?
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why during the heavy rainfall, the Mfred was exposed. At the edge of the road, nature opened heat drains by itself. Something which will have been done by the contractors who were appointed by the provincial government, because other roads are provincial roads. So when we arrived there, we realized that part of the problem is that's the first part. But second part is the shared work that is being done by our service providers. And we have taken a decision that what we are going to do, we'll come back to you. When we've consolidated our work, having clear programs on the design, we shall come back and present to you so that we're able to do oversight. To say, in this area, this project is constructed this way, so that we are able to monitor. Remember, as politicians, you always quite often blame us on interfering on supply chain. So this time we're going to do oversight and intervening where things are not being done right.
Yeah.
And there will be consequence management against officials who are appointed providers who are inadequate.
Jackson, is this could we apportion blame to statutory regulatory bodies like NHBRC and CIDB for poor workmanship? Surely at no point should service providers be delivering poor quality of workmanship and get away with it.
Yes. There needs there's a need for monitoring and evaluating what is happening and ensuring that adequate people are appointed to do work that is of good quality. Because the times where we are just going to appoint a service provider to just do the work, it has passed.
Who do you blame when a road is being built but no stormwater drain to accompany it?
Everyone, actually.
No, I mean, but somebody must have in the meeting said, yeah, no, it's fine. Let's go ahead. Who's that person with the last sign off that made that? Because that's the biggest form of negligence here.
True. We can't pinpoint a particular person, but because there are a lot of people involved in these appointments, and these appointments pass through a lot of barriers that need. So everybody that appointed needs to be at fault.
Mr. Magamu, in Limpopo, how big is the infrastructure backlog?
Well, it's a serious one. You will know that we are a rural province. To connect just two villages through an access road, a third road, requires a lot of money. even if you look at how people are protesting in the province, it's mainly on two basic services. That is, will be water provision, and the challenge is infrastructure that is dilapidated, that is not necessarily enough. But secondly, it will be the roads that will sometimes do not necessarily have proper maintenance, but at the same time, they are still backlogged to provide proper roads. So we are talking billions of rands that we require, which we cannot necessarily get at the same time, because even the economy of the country...
billions of rands is a vague term. It could be 5 billion, it could be 500 billion. What are we talking about here?
Well, I'm talking about not less than 500 billion if you will want to put infrastructure that will be able to provide services for the communities of Limpopo. I'm from the Exco Lekgotla today, where we could be able to see that the budget that we have is not necessarily enough to make all the people of this province to get their services as they require.
Is this quantification verified? Is this quantification no less than 500 billion? Is it verified?
It's not necessarily verified. That's why even the challenges we're having now with the bridges that we have, we are unable to access some areas. The Premier has given instruction that within 21 days, the Department of COXA should have led all the sector departments in the province to do assessments so that we can come back and see exactly and benefit out of the declaration of the disaster in terms of accessing funds that will be able to assist us.
Yeah. Let's go to the lines and take some voice notes. You can give us a call, 086 000 2032. I'm also taking your WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107. Let's go to Bramoro and Bloemfontein. Bramoro, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Go ahead.
Let me just put this out, disclaimer. This season has been your best season so far. Like, we are always addicted to having you. I pray Kachi doesn't come any pretty soon. You just keep on holding for him.
But I mean, this is my show. There's no one else has been here.
No, not this one. Like, on your show, we want extended version. 1 hour is too small for us.
Luckily, you've had me all week.
Especially on Friday night.
Yeah, what's your comment? What's your question?
Okay, honestly, we should just stop the blame game and stop like sharing the ideas, but rather put everything on paper and make things work. It's very unfortunate that the city of roses has gradually turned to city of filthy. It's very sad to walk on the streets of Bloemfontein, seeing all. It's like municipality is totally on lockdown. You understand? And one thing that I congratulate one of your texters was, we should also blame ourselves for being part of this problem. You know, whenever it's raining, some of us throw our garbages on the street, which ends up locked up, like choked. So when we are being faced with floods, we should also count ourselves as being part of it. And perhaps if the various municipalities have been constantly clearing the blocked drains, most of this flooding could have been long prevented. Maybe we can make use of this gift of the givers based on the performance, what they've been managing doing in the country across. Because now we don't trust the municipalities to handle all this flooding. So maybe the gift of the givers are a typical example that we can tax them to clear the whole country, especially with this block drains. They can even train most of these unemployed graduates to be in those positions. Yeah. Otherwise, we can implement nationwide disaster, whatever it is, but still there will not be any solution. And it doesn't make sense for us to hand like a coupon to people who are already victims of flooding, whereas we could have prevented such things and then allowed them to go back to their various locations, works, etc. Captain Oliver,
thank you so much for your call. Appreciate it, sir. If you're in Limpopo, if you're in Mpumalanga, give us a call. What's been your experience on the ground? Have you been able to reach emergency services? Have emergency services been able to reach you? Is there something you feared and predicted would potentially happen in the part of those two particular provinces that you're living in? I've got the MEC of COCTA of Limpopo on the line with me. I've got the MEC of COCTA of Mpumalanga on the line with me. Be a part of this conversation. Romeo in OR Tambo. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Oliver, and to your two guests, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Oliver, I just wanted to, I don't know whether it's a question or it's a contribution that I would want to make when it comes to disasters that already affected in Mpumalanga and partially Limpopo. I wanted also to support the WhatsApp message that you have read the guy that he was talking about, the garbage being thrown everywhere to an extent that they end up blocking all the drainages for water to run underground. Instead of running underground, it's running all over to end up flooding everywhere. To support that point, I needed also to ask all both our MEC, do we have a crisis in all of our municipalities? To an extent that all this garbage that we see, even those parks that we used to see a long time ago in the suburbs area, all of them, they are dirty, they are plastic, they are branches of leaves, cut being thrown over there. Where are the Department of Parks that are supposed to maintain all those? Because I know you as an MEC, you have got the mayors and the MCCs, the councillors. I mean, don't they come to the fore also to help and to ask if they've got a problem of resources that I have to cater for cleaning and everything and the like? Can't we go also to the prison, if we can suggest this, to bring those people to come and work, and maybe we can bring 10 of them to work to the other side, and then the other side they work 10 of them, so that our towns will always remain clean and clear all those drainages. That's why they're in jail. They must work.
I mean, that's a very controversial point you're making there. A little bit unrelated, but thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Gole, or is it Gole, out in Polokwane? Good evening.
Yes, Oliver, thank you. You know, the disasters that we have is due to sometimes high rainfall, but sometimes we are contributing to them. Like we were talking about the drainage that are blocked in the cities and towns. Really, it is sad that sometimes we have to be frank and talk about us, normally as blacks. We can't use rubbish bins in towns. You will see the rubbish bins 5 meters away from somebody else. They will throw the cans on the street, plastic bags and everything. When the dustbin is just 5 meters away. You know, one day I was driving, somebody threw out an empty packet of cigarette. I jumped off my car behind him. I went to pick it up and throw it into the rubbish bin. Somebody cleared for me, and he was very angry and annoyed. When it rains, it's going to block the drainage, that dirt that we throw away. It's one of the contributing factors.
Yeah.
But you ask a question, why is the street built without drainage? We don't blame the construction company that built, because they cannot put what was not in the plan. We don't necessarily blame the consulting company that was given the job to design, because the owner, the municipality and the government do not have enough money. They will say, build a road. They will say, this is what is required. Then now it overshoots the cost. They will say, cut. And what do we cut? We normally cut the drainage, because we want the surface roads. So the budget determines what the quality of road you have. Look at the townships and some other roads. They did them low, such that it is lower than the ground level. When it rains, where do we expect water to go to? Into the street, because it's the lowest part of the level field.
Yeah.
We wanted the road to be cheaper, but now it is a catch at the end of the day. So we really have to.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I'm going to have to leave it there, but Gole, but I think you make a valuable point, and I want to, on Gole's point, MEC Msibi, I want to ask you this question: what happens in the planning meeting? Surely, as political principals in the planning meeting at an executive level, it should be worrying that there's a plan to build a road or a provincial road, even, but no stormwater drainage system.
No, look, we have, as one person said, we have to accept the blame, all of us, but we must put the record straight. You ask a question to say, who must exactly take the blame? The legislation is very clear. An HOD of the department is an accounting office on spending of budget, and municipal manager of a city or a municipal manager of a town is responsible for that. But quite often, when politicians or principals engage on this thing, there were this thing, including good people of the media, saying that we are interfering with supply chain processes. But there's been evidence that it requires us as political principals to ensure that when sections or departments who are building community halls, roads, RTP houses have finished with their plan, they must come to present to us before they went out and turned, so that we satisfy ourselves that all in front is okay. So I'm saying that it's a lesson for all of us, and it's a lesson for all of us that we need to work together, both as administrative and politicians, without interfering with the basics of the law.
Yeah. MSMCB, Mpumalanga is a neighboring province to KwaZulu-Natal. They had a disaster last year, devastating floods. They had a provincial state of disaster. What have you learned from how KZN went about it that you think are applicable to how the Mpumalanga should be going about it?
Well, one thing that we have learned, because we are learning from this problem, that working as a collective would always help. Remember, the provincial premier was able to convene everybody through the Department of COGTA, which runs disaster management centers. So in the province, also in Mpumalanga, with the help of the premier, all our HOTs that we need from various departments are sitting in our joint operations committee. That makes it easier to coordinate at that level, so that when you go to the ground, we're able to understand what people at once. So that's the most lesson we've learned, that collective work brings good success of work.
Yeah. Mr. Magamu, people are worried about state of disasters. It's become politically contentious grounds, in the sense that the controversy associated to it is that it provides for expedient means and tools to allow quick action to be taken, but it also allows for people with unscrupulous intentions to steal money, as we've seen in the past. Are people's money safe?
Well, it is true that it will remain contentious. But of course, you will know, as public servants and politicians or public representatives, we should always look at the legislation, all of us, to want to benefit our people. And the reason why the disaster could be declared is to allow what my colleague MEC Msibi said, that out of this disaster, we are able, when these things are struck, that we are able to call each and every person, come and see whether a municipality can use its section to reprioritize a certain amount of money to respond to this challenge that we have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we should utilize the very same act to want to access, because once the act is get to be declared, we also make funds available from a national fiscus that will be able to tap up, because that money should always be there. Because when the professor was still speaking here, it will talk about planning, but it will also talk to the fact that the material we are using will even have an impact on how the disaster will strike us as we go on. So I believe the Disaster Management Act for now is still relevant and still to be utilized, because we need to develop even the risks that will be able to be there to mitigate the disaster that can strike. But even if you mitigate the risk, that does not mean it will not be there. As I will advise by the weather service today, you will know that Cyclone Freddy will be landing into the country here like it is going to happen. So I think we should look at the disaster management positively, but also condemn each and every politician or public servant who utilizes this to want to perpetuate corruption and doing things in a row in an intention that we want to resolve challenges of our people. But I heard when the professor was speaking about, more especially in an urban area. Let me come to what could be another challenge within the rural province like ours, where the sites get to be demarcated by traditional leaders with the help of the municipality. The very same planning engineers that will come. Sometimes the communities just want to get sites which are not necessarily surveyed, sites which are not necessarily planned, sites which are no longer not even engineered. By the time they build their nice houses, everybody commend them. But at the time, the area is a flooding zone. Then they have got a challenge. Everybody now will blame government to have not done. But when we were requesting that, let's do together as a collective spheres of government, plan together with traditional leaders and allocate sites where it is proper for habitation of people. That is what will also help us to eliminate some flooding areas. Like you just find a house, it's full of water, the water is above the window level because the area was not necessarily suitable for a person to stay there. We could even use that using our land management schemes for something else.
I want us to have a listen at some of the WhatsApp voice notes that's come through on our WhatsApp line as we have been having this conversation.
Oliver, rural areas and planning, it's something that is not there. I'm from Akonok. There's a place called Timbabati and Sgagula. 10 years back, in the middle of those two villages, there was a river. There's something in Tsonga called Shinkobani. I think Biscope can assist with the translation. Now people are building houses where there was a river 10 years back. You go to Elim in Limpopo, in a place called Revone, next to Revone, is called for the blind. If it is raining, you can hardly leave your house there. And houses are still being built right now. So somewhere, somehow, even local or rural tribal chiefs needs to be taught about this, and such places needs to be marked so that people are aware of it. Arnold in Akono.
Good evening, Oliver. This is Anonymous from Makanda. Our storm drains are so clogged with vegetation. We have approached the municipality, parks department, sanitation department to go and work on them and remove it and clear them. But they are so arrogant, they don't listen. They think there's never going to be a flood here in Makanda. But things happen, and it will be on them if such a thing has to happen.
Hi, it's Tabu here in Tabanchu. Look, I'm from a party called Lintulabatu LLB. We've written exactly on the issue of infrastructure, particularly roads in Tabanchu. And we've got rural areas that are predominantly agricultural hubs. So these rural areas produce a lot of agricultural crops and even livestock. So they play an important role in the economy. But my point is, when we develop infrastructure, we need to look at the trends in terms of what are the plans in terms of economic expansion and growth, what is the trend in terms of population growth, and what are the other social activities. In future there might be a need for some economic activities in some areas, and therefore if we build infrastructure, does it take that into consideration? In Tabanchu, that's not happening.
Hi, Oliver. Ezekiel in Bushbuck. You know, Oliver, part of the reason is that the apartheid government built the infrastructure that we have now. Then the present day government ran what apartheid has built to the ground. They either failed to maintain what has already been there, and on top of failing to maintain, they did not create anything new. They did not modernize. They only talked about it, but they did not do it. So you look at in rural areas, the manner in which stands are demarcated. These so-called traditional leaders who are politically connected, they just hand over a piece of land to everybody who has money. People build even in wetlands. So it's a mess. We are it's a mess.
Thank you so much for that. Really, really do appreciate it. I want to ask you this, Jackson. You spoke about a multidisciplinary integrated approach at dealing with infrastructure towns and planning sustainable climate-resistant towns, or at least climate-compliant towns and cities and spaces. Which skills are seriously lacking in our state value chain, government value chain at the moment, whether it be national, provincial, or even local government, that are essential in this multidisciplinary approach?
I don't think it's necessarily skills that are missing. It's working in silos. That is what's happening. Non-coordination. But I agree with most of, if not all of the listeners that have been speaking there. It starts with basics. Maintaining the parks, maintaining the drainage systems. When there's a pothole, fixing it immediately. So it's coordination that is missing. Yeah. and coordination not only at a sectoral level but also at a government level, at a provincial level, and at a local level. So we need intergovernmental relations, and we need so that's what's needed, coordination basically.
MSCMCB, you work at the center of what should be government coordination. Why are we not getting it right? MEC?
Governmental relations.
Oh, there we go. Can I ask you to start over? We just lost you for a second there.
I'm saying, remember, previous we had what we call intergovernmental relations. But with evolution of time, National Cabinet resolved on a new concept called TDM, District Development Model. Now we're all planning at one center. There's one plan for one district. Previously, you had the Department of Roads who want to come and construct roads, the national roads in a partner municipality. We've got a province who want to come and construct a hospital in a particular area. But currently, we're planning the chairpersons of district model are the district mayors. They sit, coordinate all executive mayors, coordinate all HOTs, and they've got champions as ministers, deputy ministers, and us as MSs. So now we've got it right. We're planning together. It was happening in the intergovernmental relations, but there was no one who was championing it like now. The champions are the chairperson who are district mayors.
Yeah. I'm going to have to leave it there. I'm going to say, Jackson, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really, really do appreciate it. MEC Msibi, MEC of Kokta and Mpumalanga, as well as MEC Magamu, MEC of Kokta and Limpopo. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Really, really do appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. On the other side of this, I'll wrap up the show.
Thank you so much.
SAfm 104 to 107 nationwide.
Oliver Dickson on SAfm.
I want to issue an apology. This has been my most distracted broadcast ever. Very distracted. My friend is being celebrated today, and I just want to say, rest in peace, AKA. Thank you for the music, thank you for the love, thank you for the laughter, thank you for the celebration, and even the controversy. I want to close off today's show by remembering him, how I hope we all will, for the most part. The human experience is a complex one. The human experience is a multifaceted one. It's an imperfect one. But it calls for us to remember it all. One of my favorite AKA songs, and I think that you'll love as well, Fela and Versace. And that's how I say good evening, good night to you this evening. Goodbye.
Jiggy, heavy, all the girls love me, oh, like money, call me, jiggy, heavy, all eyes on me, Machiavelli, girl, you got me speeding, yeah, doing 240 on Lecky Ekbe, with it top down, no do, gra, you been drinking, and the dirty money is stinking, girl, you got me speeding, yeah, doing 240 on Lecky Ekbe, with it top down, all the shit, bio, da, no do, gra, no do. You know they call me Fela in Versace.